What is up, everybody? We are back. Another Dolphins stream. Today, interesting combo that I wanted to have was about the Dolphins rookies. The guys that they just got in the 2025 NFL draft and how they kind of gel, fit in with the veterans on the team already, how they can kind of complement each other's skill set, or, even have, similar skill sets, maybe give breathers, things like that. But yeah, that's kind of what I want to go over. There's a couple other things we can talk about real quick. First, some articles, things that were posted today. Barry Jackson had an article, for Miami Herald, basically saying the Dolphins have reached out to free agent corner Asante Samuel Jr. He's already mentioned them reaching out to Rasul Douglas. So it seems like Dolphins definitely are doing their due diligence on that market. Probably not going to make a move, I imagine, until the Ramsey trade. So I think they're waiting until that trade happens, which we're not expecting that until post June 1st. So I think a move will happen. I think Asante Samuel Jr. is interesting. To me, this is kind of how I look at it. I feel like this whole offseason has been about getting younger and getting less injury prone. Now you're kind of at this corner position. If you're going to add one in free agency, you're going to have to kind of choose a different way. Like with Douglas, it's an older corner. Or with Asante Samuel Jr., you're getting younger, but he does have that injury history and is actually coming off a pretty serious injury. So I think at this point in the offseason, I think going after Samuel Jr. makes sense, especially if the deal's good. I think if you give him like an incentive-based deal, maybe based on playing time, that could be something I'm interested in. I don't want to overpay. I think when it comes to those players that have that injury history, I don't want to, take that risk and spend a pretty penny. So that's kind of how I view the whole Asante Samuel Jr. thing. Because he is young and he is one of the guys that could make a potential impact past this year, while I think all the other free agent cornerbacks are guys that probably would only be 1-year rentals. So that's kind of how I'm looking at that room right now. I wouldn't be mad about kind of any of the additions as long as they're fairly cheap. I don't think they should break the bank. But they do have enough money to kind of go after whoever they want, especially after the Ramsey deal goes through. What's up, guys? How you guys doing? Troll, Daniel, Terry Elwood, Jamaican from Zion, JFZ, Irving. What's up, guys? Excited for the season? Yeah, definitely. The trenches on the D-line. We're actually going to start with the D-line when we get to Kenneth Grant here, because that's the rookie I'm going to start with. Do we need 1 or 2 CBs? Yeah, they could sign both. That wouldn't be a terrible idea. They definitely need help in more than one spot, but I wouldn't be surprised if they only go after one after trading Ramsey, because it does feel like they were if Ramsey was going to stay, it did seem like they were comfortable with just keeping that room as it is, and then giving one of the young guys a shot at one spot. But I think they're kind of nervous about having to rely on those guys for multiple spots. Another thing I wanted to mention, it was reported by Seth Walder today that the Dolphins are hiring Rachel Kaplan as a football analytics staff assistant. And she's like a analytics person. They actually did a study. She has a post up this article about motion metrics and the tight end's motion impact on rushing lanes. And it's actually a very interesting article. I actually suggest checking it out. Seth Walder posted it on Twitter. And it goes into how it affects it. And they even said there's not a real statistical correlation overall, nothing consistent. But there are future directions they could take to incorporate more variables that could really, make it more impactful when you're motioning tight ends to make more space on those running lanes, which I think, is a big thing for the Dolphins. So I don't mind them bringing in these analytical experts, especially, guys that are, girls and guys that, can help them out, create those lanes. Seems like that's something that McDaniel would be interested in having. So I thought that was a little interesting addition that I saw today. But yeah, let's start with this D line. We're going to start with Kenneth Grant and kind of how I think, really we're going to talk about Kenneth Grant and Jordan Phillips and kind of how they fit in with Zach Sealer, because Sealer is the main one in that D line room that you're going to kind of add him to. Shout out Austin Clark too, the Dolphins D line coach. I feel like he deserves credit because I feel like everyone here has been developed pretty nicely on that defensive line. Yeah. Adding one more guard would be huge. Yeah, I agree. Definitely another guard would be helpful. Yeah, Samuel Jr. on a Daniels type deal. Honestly, I would hope even less, just because I think Daniels is at least a little more proven. But yeah, I think around that would be totally. Grant is not just a nose tackle. Tell those people who don't know. Yes, Elwood. And on Saturday, that will be posted. I'm probably going to make that video either tonight or tomorrow, and it will be members posts if you guys want to check it out. But by Saturday, it will be out to the public, and it will be a Kenneth Grant video, and it will be all clips of him playing outside of the nose tackle and one tech position. And that will show that he is much more than that. But we'll start with Grant, and look how he fits with Sealer. So I'm going to show some Sealer clips. And this is a video I posted on Twitter about why Sealer, I posted this last year, and I posted this video about why Sealer fit Anthony Weaver's scheme so well. And as you can see, that first play, this is a stunt that they're working up front, and it's him crashing down and then Wilkins looping to get the hit on Wilkins. It's actually funny. This is Sealer on Brewer. He actually takes Brewer out of the play here. So Dolphins on Dolphin violence there. But that's a play that definitely is important to recognize with the Sealer stuff. Here's another action of him working a stunt and still getting pressure, helping Chubb. Here's him knifing to the inside. And these are all situations of why he can work well with Grant. So I want to show this. We'll show this one Grant clip that I think does a really good job. Why they can kind of gel together. And it's actually interesting because Sealer is the smaller of the two, and usually the smaller of the D tackles are more of the loop guys, and they will swap roles. But like, look at this. This guy's crashing, and Grant's looping around, and look at the timing, the feel, and just like look how well he's moving out in space. Like, this is special movement skill for a guy this size. So this is how this can blend together. Imagine, that first clip with Sealer. This guy would be that Sealer role, and how he takes guys out here. That's exactly what Sealer does so well. And it frees up Grant on the loop, who's super athletic, can close space. And they both can do the opposite role as well. Like, Grant could be the crash guy. He can take people out of the way. Sealer can loop. But I do think it is interesting that these guys kind of, blend together pretty well and have those differing skill sets. Like, it's very rare to see the much bigger defensive lineman be the more successful looper, and then to see the smaller defensive lineman, to see the guy that's crashing and taking multiple people out of the way. And that's, I think, the biggest thing where I think they'll gel together very quickly on those interior rushes. And it's, I think, one of the probably, I think, outside of your edges creating pressure, that will be one of the biggest parts of your defense. Because if that's successful, which I think it will be because it was successful last year with Sealer and Campbell, is creating that interior pressure with your stunts, being able to only bring 4 but still getting quick pressure will be the key to success for Miami's defense this year, especially with the secondary. Love your breakdowns. I appreciate that, my guy. Yeah, and Martindale, Wink Martindale, like, Weaver comes from that sort of that background with Martindale. So Grant's going to come in right away and be ready to perform in this scheme, which is a big thing with that, which is huge. But yeah, those plays are really like the things that I wanted to showcase. Like, here's some more Sealer action. This is why he's so successful in this Dolphins scheme, is being able to line up, like, he's in like a 3-4-eye, and that the fact that he's able so quick to cross face, win with his hands, and win in a different gap like that is just so impressive. Very hard to do. It's actually funny. The Dolphins D line is all first rounders except Sealer, and Sealer was a 7th rounder and might be the best of the bunch. I mean, they're all good, but you got Chubb, who's a first rounder, Phillips, a first rounder, Chop, Grant. Lots of talent up front. Definitely your biggest strong point as a group. And that's kind of how they can blend their skill sets together. And I know we just talked about Kenneth Grant is more than a nose tackle, but he can still play nose tackle in one tech and play those effectively. And that's kind of where Sealer doesn't want to play as much. Like, Sealer can play all across the D line, but Sealer is better the wider he can get, like, from a 3 tech or a 4-eye or, even a 5 tech. He's very successful in those situations. So having guys like Kenneth Grant, and then also Jordan Phillips. They bring in Jordan Phillips. They bring in Zeke Biggers. So I'm not expecting to play too much, but he is also in that role where he's playing more 1 tech, nose tackle type. Jordan Phillips spent most of his career playing from like 0 to 3 tech, which allows, if he's in the game, Phillips can play 1, he can replace Benito Jones. Like, I think he replaced Benito Jones very easily. That's kind of like what you're hoping from him. And I think him being someone that can take on double teams in the interior, because Phillips is super strong and super stout at the point of attack. If he can take on double teams in the run game and allow Sealer to get one-on-one, free him up, that would be huge. Same even if they're, like, say Grant and Phillips are the two on the field. Say one of them can get double teamed, because I think they can both be players that eat up double teams. Both of them are very successful in their one-on-one situations. Those are kind of just like how I see Grant. I think Grant, Sealer, Phillips all will blend together very nicely. All have very complementary skill sets. None of them are exactly the same, but all of them have a decent amount of versatility to them without too much like overlap too, which is very, very nice. I think Weaver will coach up. Yeah. I'm very confident in Weaver's ability, because we have Austin Clark, who has been proven to develop defensive linemen, and then Weaver has a defensive line coaching background and has had very successful D lines pretty much wherever he's been. So I know the Dolphins D line will be is that's why even going into the draft, like I told people, like I wasn't worried about the D line, even though Sealer was really the only guy in that room. Even before we re-signed Benito Jones, like I said, I wasn't worried because the draft was so stacked with D line. I knew they would attack it. And I knew Weaver, if there was one position I feel like he could get a lot out of, it was the defensive line. What does it look like with all three edge rushers on the field at the same time? Yeah, so my opinion, actually, I'll just show a play. I don't really have it pulled up, but I'll just show you, just use this visual. So let's imagine here, I mean, this is a basic look, but imagine it's a 3rd and long. I would imagine you have your two edges. You have two on the wide 9, and I think it would be Chubb and Chop, actually. I think you can imagine all three. Like, I think all three could play on the inside in those 3rd down situation, but I actually think Phillips might be the best when standing up, like in a 3 tech, because he's so explosive and like he's got that length and powerfulness that he can like just take people out of the way. And while I think Chop can do that effectively as well, Chop proved to be such a good one-on-one rusher on the outside that I actually think like having Chop here as left defensive end, Chubb on the outside, and then having like Phillips either standing up somewhere in the interior on either side with Sealer in there as well is kind of like the ideal way to use them. But they can all do the inside stuff. Chubb's shown ability to do it. Chop did it a lot in college too and was effective. So I think that versatility goes a long way with the 3 edge looks. I don't think it's going to be something that is like, you know, constantly happening, but yeah. Was it you said that said Chubb was actually going to be overtaken by Chop and Chubb would be a rotational player? I don't know if I said that specifically, so I don't remember. It could have been me that said that, honestly. I do think Chop and Phillips are the best of the group. Like right now, I think, you know, Chubb and Phillips are both coming off pretty decent injuries, so that is something to be taken. But I think when Phillips and Chubb were playing together, Phillips was the better player. And then Chop is like, with how good Chop was playing at the end of last season, I don't think you're going to want him in a rotational role. As long as he's on the field in pass rush situations, then I'm not going to be mad. Either way, I think all of them will play similar amount of snaps. So it's not something I'm super worried about whether Chop is starting or not, or Chubb is starting or not. I don't think it really matters as long as they're all getting like a good amount of snaps. Chop's snaps aren't getting limited because he's behind Chubb or anything. Like, if Chubb needs to be out there in obvious run situations, that's fine. I forgot, did they restructure Chubb's contract this offseason? I think they just redid his deal. It wasn't even like a restructure. I think they like totally just redid his deal. So, like, the Chubb thing was actually good for them. It didn't affect them, like, I think future-wise either. Like, I think they're still fine to like move on from Chubb after this season. Let's see. I'm just reading what you guys are saying. We're just rubbing his hands like Berman. This defense can be, yeah. Defense can be nasty up front. So that's kind of like how I see the defensive linemen gelling with them. Less emphasis, I think, on Biggers because, you know, Zeke is a literally 7th round pick. He's basically an undrafted free agent with how late he was taken. I mean, he's not even a guarantee to make the team. If he does make the team, I don't think he'll play that much, maybe some snaps, but I do think like Phillips and Grant will both be like, Grant will be a starter and Phillips will be a heavy rotational player. And I think both of them will blend pretty nicely for Sealer with those reasons. And Sealer is a super friendly defensive tackle to play with. Like, he is like, him doing this stuff being able to create this space on this stunt. Look at what he does to Brewer on this play. And shout out Brewer. Brewer's a stud for Miami right now. But look at like the quickness. So this is important. The first step quickness. He's late here too. He's not even set. Like look, he's trying to get set. He realizes the ball snap. Look at the quickness to cross face of the guard, which gets the guard to fully commit to him. And then the power. This is why you got to be powerful and quick to play defensive lineman at the next level. If you lack power, it's going to be hard to make it to the next level. He's one quick, which gets the left guard to commit to him fully. And then he's quick enough, or he's powerful enough to then take the center out of the play. Also balanced to stay on his feet to not allow Levis to like work up into his spot, because if he like takes himself out of the play, Levis could potentially escape Wilkins, and then Wilkins gets a free sack because Sealer took out multiple defensive linemen on his way. Shout out my guy. Shout out my guy, Zach. Zach is an absolute stud, and he still continues somehow. Like, I feel like every team has that player that's just super underrated, like league-wide. Like, everyone in that fan base knows him. And, like, hardcore fans will, like, hardcore, like, NFL people who, like, study film and stuff will know Sealer. But people who are, like, casual fans, like, just don't know who Zach Sealer is of, like, other teams. And I feel like, you know, every team will have that player. Sealer is definitely that guy for Miami who's just super good and gets overlooked. Yeah, pretty much. Noodle. Hey, we ignored the last 3 minutes of that game. The game that could have potentially destroyed this regime. But yeah. That's kind of how I feel about that group. On to the next, we got O-line. Jonah Sava-Inaya, I think that's how you say it. And how he fits into this whole group. O-line is another one where you're going to have multiple positions around you. Similar to D-line, you're playing with a group. Even your defensive ends you have to consider. Jonah will be playing guard. Now, the only thing we don't know is if he will be playing left guard or right guard. We haven't really heard much yet. I think the thought process for most people is right guard. So then Daniels can play next to Patrick Paul, who's a little more younger and experienced. So you can have Paul next to him. And then you keep Jonah at right guard where he looked more comfortable in college. So I'm going to just imagine Jonah at the right guard position for now, next to Brewer and Austin Jackson, and kind of how he fits into that mold. I think next to those two, you have a very athletic like trio right there. Brewer is one of the most athletic centers in the league, super good mover. Jackson's always been pretty good mover, athletic. He's powerful in the run game. I like having both of them next to them because they're both guys who really like to get involved in the run game. And I think that's kind of one of Jonah's, like, it's not a major weakness, but it's something that I do think he needs to improve upon, is his consistency in the run game when it comes to like power. So I think having like a super athlete next to you in Brewer, and then someone who plays with a nastiness, like Jackson isn't an elite player by any means, but if there is one thing he is quite good at, it is playing with a nastiness in the run game as like a down blocker. So I think combining that with Jonah and having his movement skills next to those two is a really nice combo. And he has good size, which I think will help Brewer because Brewer is a smaller guy. I think having guys with size next to them that can also move. Daniels and Jonah are both bigger body guards that are still good movers, which is, I think, something this offensive line desperately needed. Now, Jonah just needs to find a little more consistency with finishing in the run game. I think in pass pro, he will be... I think pass pro, I'm not really worried at all about Jonah at guard. If he was playing tackle, I would have more concerns. But I think at guard, he shows consistency. Usually where he struggled in college to where his losses came from, those problems will be minimized at guard. There's less space to work with. And then also the scheme. I think the scheme we've seen is so friendly for Miami when it comes to the pass protection game. Like the ball gets rid of so quickly. There's a lot of play action. It just slows down stuff. So I think if Jonah can really just, take an extra step as a run blocker next to those two, which I think it will help him out a lot, those three should have a pretty solid thing next to each other. Now, if you had to play on the left side, I don't know if I'd love it as much because then you have two guys. You have a rookie next to Paul, and Paul will be like going into his second season, and it's not like he played the whole year, the first year. Then you'd have some inexperience on the left side of the line. I could see, some miscommunications. But you would have a big and athletic duo on that side. Like if it was Paul and Sav next to each other, very big and very athletic, which would be a fun sort of thing to try to develop, but I don't know if it'd be as good initially taking off. I like Kashi, probably when West in the UDFA pickups. Yeah, I like the O-line. I think West has the best chance out of those three to make the roster. I think the other two are good practice squad candidates, but I could see West making it. Kyle Krabs is calling. Oh yeah, I think I saw Krabs talk about. I saw the title of his video. He was talking about Sealer the other day, right? But yeah, he was talking about new money. I'm down to give. I think Sealer, Jordan Brooks are guys that could definitely get new contracts. I think Brooks, Sealer, out of like the older veterans, maybe Aaron Brewer, maybe Jonnu Smith, but I wouldn't do like a big one for Jonnu Smith. And then Devon Achane, I think, for the younger guys, because I don't think you don't have many draft picks coming up. So I think you can actually give out contract extensions. And Sealer's still 29, so it's not like Sealer's out of his prime yet. I think you can get him for another, couple years. That would be totally good with me. It doesn't look like he's really slowed down yet either. And he was a late round pick, so he had a little bit of a late start, didn't play a ton early in his career, but now has become a full-time player. I just looked up his age, and I didn't realize his name is Zachary Wilfrid or Wilfried, because it's spelled Frie. Wilfried Sealer. Nice. From, what is it, Ferris State? What an absolute dog. Okay. Jedrick Wills. Oh, yeah, I should have mentioned that. Yeah, I saw a report, but I think it was one of those aggregator accounts, the ones that are like, I don't think have a lot of sources that kind of just spread stuff. But they did talk about Jedrick Wills to Miami. But that's the only thing I've seen or heard about it. So it wouldn't, if they do make that move, I wouldn't mind it. I knew he's definitely struggled since he's come to the NFL level. Like, because he was a high first-round pick, was really good coming out of Alabama, and he just never played up to that at the Browns. I actually do think he would be a good scheme fit. Like, I think it would actually, I think if you're an athletic O-lineman that hasn't really worked out at tackle, but you think you can play guard, I think coming to Miami is like the best choice for your career. Or even like, if you're a guard that can play center, like, look what happened with Connor Williams. Connor Williams didn't really know, it was kind of like, not like he wasn't at the end of his career, but like he was struggling a bit with Dallas. He comes to Miami, switches to center. The O-line scheme is so, if you're athletic, the scheme is so friendly to you. And I think Jedrick is pretty athletic, so I actually think it's probably the best choice for his career to potentially salvage it. So yeah. But yeah. Favorite corner to replace Ramsey in free agency? Just purely based off signing, honestly, either Douglas or Asante Samuel Jr. If Asante Samuel Jr.'s health checks out, I guess I would take that risk. If they're around the same price range, I would rather take the risk on the younger guy that maybe has some injury history, just because either way, I expect the young guys to play at some point in the season. And I think he has higher upside. I think Douglas is really good in cover 2, and I feel like the Dolphins are trying to run less zone this year, so I don't know if that's like something they're going to look into, but I wouldn't be mad with that signing either, especially if he's pretty cheap. But after that, I didn't really love any of the free agent corner names. It's all about time. Or it's all about the price tag. Okay, but why do we need to throw out the ball quick? Just have a calm pocket for 2.5 seconds and you'll have success? I mean, I do think they need to like have more time in the pocket and like expand the playbook a little bit more. But that is the bread and butter of the offense. I think there's a reason you get the ball out quickly. It is one, I mean, everything in the NFL nowadays is based on timing and rhythm. And when you can be a timing, rhythm-based offense, it is very tough to stop. And just the longer you hold on to the ball, the longer I think you risk having some negative plays. So yeah, I do think they need to like hold on to the ball a little bit more longer in situations. But having a quick game is nothing terrible, and especially when you have your receivers that can get to spots very quickly down the field. So even though I think that's something the Dolphins did really well in 2023 is, yeah, they got rid of the ball in under 2.5 seconds, but they were still throwing the ball down the field. So as long as they're throwing the ball down the field, I don't really care if it's under 2.5 seconds, over 2.5 seconds. To me, it's just I want the ball to be the average depth of target to get raised. And I think the Dolphins offense is just at their best when they're pushing the ball down the field and they're pushing it down the field quickly. Why does no one like Shaq Griffin? I think his play is just falling off. Why do you think the Dolphins are moving more towards cover one? Well, why is in why? Well, why? I'll answer both whys because there's a couple of different ways. I guess I could take that question. Why do I think it is because of all the signs that point to it? I think they moved on from Kendall Fuller. They're planning to move on from Ramsey. Those guys have always been more zone match guys throughout their careers. If you look at all the other teams that run the same scheme as Anthony Weaver, they all run cover one at like a 10% higher rate. And then all the corners they added this offseason were more press man-to-man. So that's the why I think that's going to happen. And then why do I think that they're actually want to do it? Like, why does Weaver want to do it? One, I think he's more comfortable with that. And I think they gave up, if you go back and watch the film last year, I think they gave up a lot of easy completions, especially on early downs. Like when it was third down, like obvious passing situation, they did a really good job with their pressure and like they were more prepared to take away some quick and easy throws. But in those like first down, first and 10, second and medium stuff, I feel like the Dolphins were more in like a mix of things. Their zone was too soft. The players just didn't seem like they were super comfortable from time to time. They tried to do a lot of covered rotation. So I think and when you look at the secondary, and they're going to be young this year, I think you kind of just want to keep things simple. And sometimes simple as it is like, even though it's a tough job, but it is kind of simple mentally, is just go up and match on someone one-on-one. Like, don't think too much about it. Like, you don't have to think about multiple different route concepts that could be happening. You're just one-on-one with this guy. And like, it is the most tough, like athletically job, I think, in the NFL, but from a mental standpoint, it's not at least super demanding. Rhythm doesn't work in the playoffs. You need to be able to adjust. That's why we struggle, right? Come on. See, I think a lot of people say that, but I think that's just untrue. Being able to adapt is great, but like rhythm obviously works in the playoffs. Go look at any team that's playing. Go look at the Eagles who just won the Super Bowl. They were in rhythm the whole time. The Eagles run like 5 offensive plays there, and it was in the rhythm of their offense. Now, a handful of plays you need to be able to adapt, but 90% of the game is your rhythm-based thing, just going on, doing what you do best. And then the other 10% is that off-script stuff, which is a great bonus. But if you can't do the timing-based stuff, if you can't play on time in a rhythm, then you can only do the off-script stuff, then you're not even going to have a chance to make it as like, in the NFL, whether that's as a quarterback or any position on the offensive side of the ball. So I do believe that being able to do both is very key. But if you can't do the first part, then you're just adapting the whole time, and then you're kind of screwed. Even Mahomes, look at the Chiefs. Like, obviously, Mahomes is great off script, and he'll have like 5 to 10 plays a game where he does something crazy. But if you watch the Chiefs, majority of their plays are them just running RPOs and Mahomes dumping the ball off on a screen very quickly. Like, they're in the base form of their offense a lot of the time. Yeah, I mean, the Eagles ran inside zone, a few variations of like their RPO stuff, and then had some different vertical actions that they would take. And then they had like some play action mixed in there with the vertical stuff. It's pretty much all they did. And it worked. And then Hurts would have like 3 plays a game where he made a playoff script. Ooh, okay. So finishing up with the Jonah thing. Yeah, I think he meshes pretty in nicely with, especially at the right guard spot. I think that's where he would fit in the best. But yeah, just keeping athletic. You have a very athletic 5. Most of the guys you have pretty good size too. I mean, Brewer's not the biggest, but Brewer makes up for it by being probably the most athletic center in football. And then, yeah. Okay. Then who do we have next? So I did Grant. We talked about Phillips too. We talked about Jonah. Jason Marshall Jr. I don't know if it's like I think when it comes to just the corners in general, there's not too much talking about, I think, gelling wise. I think, O-line and D-line is more so about like playing off of each other. I think corners, you're a little more isolated. Maybe if you can play like nickel stuff, you can like have to work and communicate with your outside corner. But I think with Marshall, it's more just about how he fits into the scheme, playing that man-to-man press on the outside. I don't think there's too much to go about when it comes to gelling with teammates, because I think a lot of them kind of have some similar skill sets with the young guys, so it will be interesting. I still don't understand the Brewer hate. Yeah, that will never make sense to me. I don't see a ton of it, but I will see some people say that Brewer isn't good, and Brewer was probably like a top 5-ish player for you next year. I really think people are way down on Jason Marshall. I think he'll be fine. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's fine. It's just not my favorite pick of the bunch. I don't hate it though. Like, it is a 5th round pick. Not. I just don't know if I see too much of a year one impact. I think he'll play, and he'll be in a tough spot. It is tough to play corner year one, especially if they're gonna be running press man. You think we'll see Chunky to 20 for the sake of him remaining healthy? Honestly, I just don't really think him being chunkier was the reason he stayed healthy. Like, I know that's like something that's been said out there. That's kind of one of the narratives. That's not the reason, like, he still took, like, he didn't take that many hits. The reason he stayed healthy in 2023 is he just didn't take hits. He didn't put his body on the line as much. Now, if you're the way I think you could make it make sense is him being chunkier made him run less and then not put his body on the line. That makes sense. But him being chunkier in the terms of like taking a hit, no, I don't think that's the reason. He just wasn't running in 2023 at all. In 2024, he decided to run and he didn't slide. So if he's going to run, he just has to slide. Simple as that. But other than that, like, he only got hurt trying to run the ball in 2024. 2023, he barely got hit because he got rid of the ball so fast. The run game was successful, and he pretty much barely tried to run at all. So, and honestly, from the clips I've seen of him, it doesn't look like he's in that 2023 sort of size, at least. And then Dante Trader. Okay, this one actually I think matters because I think safety combinations is very interesting, how he gels with the safety room. Because safety play, I think, is more, you have to be kind of differing skill sets, but be able to play both spots. So this is interesting because I think Trader has versatility, which is always helpful to any room. But I do think he kind of thrives closer to the game. That's why I don't know if his skill set, like if Melifonwu is your starter, I don't know if him and Melifonwu are the most complementary of skill sets. I think Melifonwu is more of like, plays that big slot type of situation. I don't know if either of them are like deep, middle of the field, close, free safety types. I don't know if you really have many of those on the roster. Maybe Ashton Davis has done that throughout his career. So maybe if you paired him with like an Ashton Davis, I think McMorris and Trader are actually pretty similar. That's why I think McMorris and Trader might be fighting for some playing time this year, because they are both more like guys that have played a lot of strong safety. They can do some quarters work, like play split field safety looks, not necessarily single high guys in terms of like big rangy stuff. They can like do their job, but they're not going to be like super rangy, impactful plays in those spots. Both very active versus the run. Like if they have a chance to make a play on the run, they'll come downhill and make a play. So that's where I think they can mesh well with like a guy like Melifonwu being more involved. Well, maybe you could have Melifonwu more focused on like man coverage versus tight ends and things like that. So that's kind of an interesting. Who do you think makes the rotation? I said, yeah, we usually keep 4, but I wouldn't be surprised if we keep 5 this year, Noodle. That's one of the positions I think will be different this season. Because usually they've changed up year to year. It hasn't been exactly the same. Like, 1 year they kept 2 tight ends. Last year they kept 4. I think this year they'll probably keep 3 tight ends, and I would be surprised if they keep 5 safeties when they've typically kept 4. Especially if they think one of the safeties can play in the nickel or something like that. But yeah, I think we'll keep Melifonwu, probably Davis. I think they'll keep Campbell, and then I think they'll keep McMorris and Trader. That's kind of what I'm guessing. And then Saunders will be on the practice squad, if I had to guess. But who knows? And you never know, if an injury happens, then that could help bump up a guy like Saunders, or they could just keep Foreman at that point. It was the Tua Jitsu. It honestly did help him in a few situations. Where do you see Andrew Armstrong versus DOE as far as making the team? I like both, but I do prefer Armstrong's game a little bit. So I would lean Armstrong, but I actually think the Dolphins might lean Weiss, just because if you look at the guaranteed money given out, I believe Theo Weiss was the highest in guaranteed money out of the UDFA class, which is usually a telltale sign that they are very interested in that UDFA making the team. So I lean Andrew Armstrong. I think they're both kind of similar. They have, similar body types. I think Armstrong's, more explosive. He was even more productive. I think, he's got a really nice catch radius to his game. I think he does some better things in terms of yak. But I think he also, is better release versus press, while Weiss has better release versus like off man and zone. And then I think Weiss is just a smarter level player at this point. I think Armstrong's not dumb by any means, but I think Weiss is like super advanced in terms of like the nuance and the technical side of the game. But yeah, that's. And then the next player is Ollie Gordon. Yeah, Ollie Gordon. This is another one that we can talk about, because Ollie Gordon, I think, blends into the running back room really nicely. He might not be the guy that you're looking at like in terms of scheme fit that's like, oh, this is your typical outside zone back. No, he's not really that. But like, he's going to take over that Jeff Wilson-ish type role. And I think they should use him even more than they use Jeff Wilson, by the way. But Gordon is listed at, I think, 6'1 3/8 and 226 pounds. So he is a big guy, and he is very, very solid in short yardage situations. He can, run some people over and pick up those, like grind out those yards. So I think that's how he can complement guys like Achane and even Jalen Wright, even though I think Jalen Wright can do some of that stuff too. But Wright, I think, is a little more of a home run hitter than Gordon is. So I think they can complement each other's skill set, while they all can do receiver stuff as well, but they're different types of receivers. I think Jalen Wright's still trying to develop that part of his game, but Achane, one of the best pure receiving backs in the league. Like, he can go out there and legitimately run receiver routes like no other running back can. And then Gordon, while he's not like a pure receiver in terms of running routes, he's got really reliable hands, and he's also got value that the Dolphins haven't really had before, is that he can do some pass protection stuff. That, like, he will lay the wood in pass protection from time to time and like look to punish defenders, which I think is another valuable sort of complement to that room that they're missing. Just being a little more north-south, a little more physical. I think he needs to drop his pad level more consistently. He really only drops his pad level in those like short yardage situations, which is obviously important. But like, he needs to do it more consistently. Just, he runs pretty upright in like the other situations. But I do like his fit into the room, and that's another one where like running backs complement each other is pretty big. Hoping for a 1-2 punch with Gordon or Wright and Achane. Yeah, I mean, I think I think Wright's going to be one of the breakout players this year for the Dolphins. I think Gordon will see playing time, but I don't think he'll get his time over Wright. And then Achane, I think will get more of a receiving role, and I think they're going to try to maybe not force feed him as a runner as much, but like maximize his usages. The only good season Gordon had, he played a lighter weight. I mean, he was still big. I mean, he wasn't playing like much lighter, and he was still playing physical and finishing in short yardage situations. So that doesn't really change anything, but slot. I mean, I've seen Achane play on the outside. You know what? Hold on. Let me see if I can find that clip. I actually saw it recently posted. I don't have it on hand, but I actually think I could probably... Could I find it? Nope. Not right away, at least. But Achane I've seen him run legitimate wide receiver routes this last season. It's actually insane. I just got to look up Achane dig route and you find it instantly. But yeah. Oh, actually, here it is. Okay. Here it is. This is Achane. All on the outside, obviously in a condensed formation. The Dolphins love to play in their condensed formations. This is a staple of the Shanahan system. Motion Tyreek across. He's isolated down here. Running a deep dig route. How many yards down the field is this, actually? They're at, what, the 47? Achane is running a deep dig route. This is not normal for... This is thrown almost 20 yards down the field. And he makes this catch in a contested situation. Has to even go up and get it a little bit. I mean, to more protect himself. But, man, this is not normal. The break, the efficiency. Catching it with your hands, too, down the field. Like, man. That is rare. Which position do you see the Dolphins increasing? But yeah, that's kind of, those are my guys. Yeah. Let me see what you guys say. They had him listed at 214. I mean, I watched the film. I mean, he looked pretty much around the same size. I mean, it might have been a little bit smaller. I don't think it really changed anything. He was still finishing his short yardage runs. Doesn't really change what I was saying. I felt sorry trying to make tackles on Gordon, especially on goal line plays. He left them damaged. Yeah, that's definitely true. And then we go into, well, we talked about Bigger, so I guess the only one left is Ewers, right? He's the only draft pick I haven't talked about. Well, that one's a little weird because when it comes to QB play, you only have one on the field, so they don't necessarily gel on the field at the same time. So it's not really about how he gels with the players specifically, but we can talk about him as like a fit in terms of like play style. Like Ewers is a play style fit. Like he pretty much played in the same offense at Texas. Kind of, you know, similar like strengths and weaknesses to what you have with Tua. Obviously, just not as good strengths and a little more accent on the weaknesses, you know, going in the 7th round. But I think he can turn into a solid backup. I've talked about, which would be great value. Definitely plays on time, likes to get rid of the ball quickly. Quick release. I like his quick release. Probably my favorite part of his game. Accurate in the short and intermediate. Can do a lot of the RPO stuff. I think does a good job with his like manipulation with eyes and body, like shoulders and stuff like that, which is nice. And then has some of the similar limitedness in terms of arm strength. I mean, his deep ball accuracy might be his biggest weakness. Hopefully, I do think there is potential to make the deep ball accuracy better because I think it could have been a footwork issue this past season. And I think we saw him talk about that with Gruden. Like he had changed up his footwork and his deep ball definitely took a hit for it in 2024. Like it was really bad. So hopefully that can be improved upon if he has to play. And I guess we'll probably see a lot of Ewers in preseason, so that will be fun to look out for. But yeah, not too much to go there in terms of like gelling with your players because quarterbacks aren't on the field at the same time. Yeah, talked about Biggers with when I talked about D-line earlier. Not too much to say. I mean, like he kind of gels in the same way with Sealer in terms of just like they play different positions. Like Biggers will mostly play like 0 to 1 tech to 2i, while like if he was on the field with Sealer, Sealer would more play as like a 3 to 5 tech type of guy. Yeah. Then I guess we can talk about some of the UDFAs because some of the UDFAs I actually think fit this criteria in terms of like Conyers and the receivers, because the receivers, especially like, you know, the bigger body guys like Armstrong and Weiss, they kind of have more of that Nick Westbrook-Akine feel to them, and they, you know, complement, you know, one, they fit the scheme, and they also complement guys like Tyreek, Waddle, Malik Washington. And then you have the smaller guys like Taj Washington from last year. Monterey Godwin. That can... Or did I say Godwin? I think it might be Baldwin. Yeah, it's Baldwin. Guys that can more complement the bigger body guys if they were to make it stick around. Conyers is interesting because I think he's actually a Conyers is like an in-between player to what you have at tight end. Like, he's not quite a full-on Y, at least not yet. Like, he has the size to potentially develop into a full-on Y. Like, if you can develop his blocking and like the overall play strength of his game, he can more play into that Pharaoh Brown, Julian Hill type thing. But he also has a little bit of Jonnu to his game in terms of like he has some quickness and speed to his game, and he's also pretty good with the ball in his hands. But he's not quite a full-on Jonnu in terms of like explosiveness. So he's kind of like a mixture of the skill sets, which I actually think gives him a decent chance of making the squad, because you can kind of get a 2-1, maybe not full advantage of either, but 2-1, and then potentially developing him into a good player because he is a quality player. How much money do you make from YouTube, including members? Depends on the month. It actually probably changes. Nothing crazy. I think when you really make money on YouTube, you have to get like sponsorships, and I've never had like a full-on sponsor before. I guess I'm wondering is if there would be any consideration having Asian as a full-time receiver. Full-time, I don't think so. I don't think it's needed. Maybe if a receiver was like if you didn't have a Tyreek or an Waddle, then maybe I could go for that, but I don't think they would ever make him a full-on receiver. He can still make big plays as a running back. He's still just a valued weapon. Now, if they want to use him more at receiver, I'd be down for that. What about Saunders, peanut punch special teams guy? Yeah, Saunders also, like, if he does make the team, I think it's just tough because I think an injury has to happen for Saunders to make it, or he just has to really, or they would have to cut someone like Trader or Patrick McMorris. Because I just don't think they're going to cut all the veterans on the team. I mean, I wouldn't mind that because I don't mind, having like a Melifonwu and then keeping all the rookies if that's what they want to do, or keep all the young guys. But I do like Saunders Jr., his skill set. He's another one that kind of, he actually has some nickel capability, which I think would give him a fun role on the team because he has more nickel potential than most of the roster, and he's played, some deep. He's got a lot of ball skills. He has a chance, and I think he'd be a little bit of a different fit to what you have in the safety room, which could give him maybe an advantage to make the team more so than I'm expecting. It's just like who do they end up cutting for Saunders to stick around? Plus, I don't know. I think you can get Saunders on the practice squad. If you keep him on the practice squad, then at some point you can just elevate him to the roster if there's an injury at safety or something like that. Yeah. Oh, I'm a big Conyers fan. Yeah, I was on the Conyers train for a while. And the Dolphins will carry extra receivers this year. I mean, if they keep 6, that's pretty normal for most of the league. I think 6 is pretty likely. Last year they only kept 5 for most of the year, but before that they were keeping 6 for a majority of the time. So, just depends. Last year was interesting because they had a lot of their guys got injured. There's a cup. Sorry, late join. Just curious. Yeah, Phil. It hasn't. Yeah, I discussed it a little bit earlier when talking about O-line and kind of his fit within the people around him. I kind of talked about him more as a right guard. That's what I think is the best idea, but I haven't heard anything yet. I haven't really heard anyone mention anything. I think they're kind of playing it by ear. They're probably gonna, get work early in like these mini camps that are coming up. Kind of see where guys are comfortable, and then I imagine they're going to build off that. But I believe right guard is the best spot. Yeah, hit the like button, send it out. I'll have I actually have a Taj Washington film breakdown out tomorrow. Haven't talked about Taj Washington in a while, but he's another one that I think is a sleeper because I kind of talked about it, but I think Taj should almost be like considered like a part of this this draft class because he didn't really play last year and he was a 7th round pick. And watching Taj's film, he's a very different player from the guys you brought on this year, like the Armstrongs and the Weiss. But I think Taj was a dog at USC, and honestly, like I think there's a reason he ended up getting drafted. Like I think his film was actually probably better than them, but I think guys that were injured the year prior that were either late round picks or UDFAs, I feel like a lot of times they struggle the second season to make rosters because of like, I think recency bias is a real thing. I think these guys have had their eyes on these guys they just added, whether it was in the draft or on UDFA guys, and they get like first looks and they're like, if they impress, like they want to keep them around. So like, I feel like for a guy like Taj, you have to really, really impress. But I went back and watched it. I'm like, Taj was a dog. He does a lot of good things well. So check that out tomorrow when I make it. Yeah, Taj was Caleb Williams' favorite target. Honestly, if they cut him, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes the Bears pick him up. Yeah. The Colts schedule, yeah. Any... I think they stashed... Oh, yeah, they definitely stashed Washington because I don't think they needed to put him on the injury list for the whole season. I don't think his injury was that serious. I hold 7. See, I don't think they'll hold 7 because there's too many spot like that'd be I wouldn't mind it per se, like if they kept 7 initially and like to maybe work around something and then maybe one goes on IR or something. But I just feel like there's too many players at other spots that they're probably going to try to keep around. Because like because I've looked at it, we'll talk about the 53-man roster the closer we get to training camp. But like you're probably going to keep 3 quarterbacks right this year, which is usually more than usual. I think running back might be a position they try to get less than usual. I think they usually keep 4 running backs and Ingold. So I think maybe keeping 3 running backs and Ingold might be the move. Just cut Madison. That would be something I would do. I don't think they will. I think they're probably going to try to keep 3 tight ends, but there's a world they keep 4 as well. Kept 4 last year. But I think keeping 3, I don't know. But if they keep 3, man, I think that could push Conyers out. Because I think they just love Julian Hill. I think they might even like Julian Hill more than Pharaoh Brown. So that's just how it is with the Miami Dolphins. And then receiver, like I don't know if they have the space. O-line, they might have to keep 8. If you really think about it, maybe 9. I don't think they can afford to keep like a 10th O-lineman. And then defensive side of the ball, you got a lot of edges. You got, the right amount of D tackles. You probably got the right amount of linebackers. Probably keep 4, let Tyndall go, players like that. DB is a big question mark. I don't know what they're going to do at DB. You think Tua will make it through the whole year, or you think Wilson's or Ewers will take over? I mean, in terms of like the only way, I mean, Wilson and Ewers would only take over. I think I saw someone say that their hot take was Tua gets benched during the season. I think the only way he's off the field is if he's injured, which obviously has a chance of happening. I don't think it will. I don't think he'll get benched. Getting injured is tough to predict. I don't like to predict whether he's going to get injured or not. But statistically, like doing the numbers, I mean, it's probably likely. You just got to hope it's not something big. And if it is an injury, it's only like a game or 2. Get rid of Eichenberg and keep better talent. I don't mind getting rid of Eichenberg, but I just don't think they will do him, I think they see him as a guy that has experience in the scheme, and he can play guard and center, and I think they're going to value that and keep him on the squad as a backup guy. Because if you look at it, you have your 5 starters that we talked about, and then they're probably going to keep Eichenberg, Larry Borum, probably Keon Smith as your swing tackle if he's back and healthy, and then probably Andrew Meyer as the backup center, and that's 9 right there. And if they don't keep Andrew Meyer, they probably keep one of the UDFA guys they brought in, like Addison West over here. Yeah, I mean, I hope they do keep Conyers. It's just nothing's a guarantee at this point, And it depends. Like we've done this before with UDFAs, where like there's ways to work around it, and like maybe you kind of stash them for a season. Or just depending on like an injury happens, or maybe just a player gets injured and it's not even a battle and he just gets a spot instantly. Or if he doesn't really get a chance to perform in preseason, you probably could get him through waivers and just keep him on your practice squad. But I don't know. Last year they waived Chris Brooks. That was like the one guy that I was like, nope, shouldn't have waived Chris Brooks. I still don't think they should have waived Elijah Higgins, the Stanford kid, a few years ago. And he's like the backup tight end for the Cardinals. I still think they should have rolled with Higgins over Hill, but it is what it is. Yeah, but any final questions before we roll this thing up? Thank you guys for watching. Drop a like. Check out the videos coming up. I've got, Taj Washington. I got one more UDFA to do, which is Alex Huntley, the South Carolina kid. He's interesting. I think he's a practice squad guy, but he's got one really good trait to work with. The rest of his game needs work, but he has one trait that I really like, and you'll see in the video. Then I think after that, I don't have any more UDFA. There's some UDFAs I could do, but I just don't have either film or there's not really a point to it. And then I'm going to start getting into some olds, like, some other stuff, like some UDFAs for last year. Grayson Murphy is like basically back as a UDFA this season. He was my favorite UDFA the previous time. So I think he has a chance to stick around. I hope that's a player I'm looking forward to watching. I'm going to make a video like on Patrick McMorris talking about how I think he's going to have a breakout season. Then, after that, I'm going to try some different style videos. Like I have a plan for a Jalen Waddle one where it's like a mix of this, where I'm talking to the camera in the beginning, and then I get into like the film breakdown, because I have a video in mind where I'm going to usually I make videos pretty quickly. Like it's not that hard to make the videos. I'm going to actually spend some time on this Waddle video talking about, because I've seen some Waddle disrespect happen, and I just want to, throw that one out there. And thanks, Phil. Do we keep 5 linebackers? Off ball, I think we're only to keep 4. I think we should only keep 4 anyways. Keep Brooks, keep Dodson, keep Brooks, Dodson, KJ Britt, and Willie Gay. And then you can keep like Tyndall on the practice squad. I mean, I don't think anyone wants Tyndall at this point. Your thoughts on Cushy, Praby, and West? I like Cushy as a developmental tackle. I would keep him on the practice squad. Josh Preeb from Michigan, I think he's fine. I wouldn't mind keeping him on the practice squad either, but I just don't think I could see him make it. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if any of them made the roster. I just have a problem with like some of the play strength aspects of his game. And there's not like really standout traits to work with. Well, and then there's someone like Addison West. Like I could see Addison West having a Andrew Meyer type leap from last year, because I think West and Meyer are very similar, both very good athletes, and I think West is actually even a better job of like using the torque and has like that wrestler sort of background, and could honestly, I mean, him and Meyer I think could be a fun battle. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next time.